It's February the 14th, Valentine's Day, and we are starting to prepare for our spring season, bee season, to really ramp up and kick off. Haven't made a video in a couple of months. I use those winter months, primarily November and December and most of January, to kind of take a break from bees. It's good for me to do that anyway, when I can, as much as I can, to kind of break up that this monotonous cycle, day-to-day over and over things. It's good to take that break if you can. We feed up our bees pretty hard in the fall, late fall, and don't really mess with the bees until on into January, February. I start to put some open feed on bees in January. They start to brood up some after the first of the year. It's pretty slow, but they do start to brood up, and as the beginning of February rolls around, give or take, beginning of February, we start to get those red maples blooming. Things kind of pick up a little more, especially if you got any nectar coming in, which is pretty slim to none here in Alabama at this time. Sometimes we'll get a little nectar, but mainly we take care of that with syrup, with artificial nectar, and tricking the bees into thinking there's a nectar flow going, and that'll really get them to brooding up. We haven't done that this year, other than doing a little open feeding, and that's just, we start that in January, just as a precaution, just in case bees have become light on feed, just to make sure that there's enough syrup on them to keep them alive. But when we get ready to really ramp up brood rearing, we do that with buckets on the hives, as you've seen in our videos before. We haven't done that yet. A little bit late getting started. We had a couple of weeks of really warm weather. Would have been a really good time to get that started, but haven't. So we got a few cold days, and then we're gonna have another warm up, and we'll get started on that then. Haven't been in as big of a hurry. We usually pre-sell a lot of nucs, and have numbers that I need to meet every year, and not doing that this year. I'm going to keep most of our splits for ourselves, so kind of been more relaxed on getting our numbers built up so early. One reason for that, I'll give you a little background. I don't know if I've talked about this before, but we've got into a retail business where it's primarily wholesale. We wholesale to retail locations such as grocery stores and convenience stores and things like that. We provide a display and keep our products stocked. We sell different size bottled honey, sell comb honey, lip balms, lotions, soap, body butter, and candles, different size candles, and I can't remember what else. Some honey straws and little wax melts, and a few other odds and ends. And that business is really growing and doing good for us, and we're kind of focusing our business on that. And we need more numbers to provide more honey, so we're gonna produce most of our splits for ourselves this year, and grow out our numbers for honey production. So I'm kind of going to focus on that this year. That's just to give you a little background of what our intent is through this year as you watch. Through these cold days, we're right now just kind of getting cleaned up, getting the shop cleaned up and things like that. Going to be building a bunch of frames for comb honey. Just little odds and ends as we get ready for these next. We got a few cold days, and then those warm days. Like I said, we're going to start putting some feed on the bees with some buckets, and start to ramp up our bee numbers, their brood numbers, and get ready to start making splits and filling up some yards. I've looked at some hives on some yards, and we've done really well so far from what I've seen over the winter time. Bee numbers are good, really good. I have seen a lot of bad news in the bee industry so far of losses. So if you've got good numbers still, you can consider yourself lucky, or either doing something better than others are doing, one of the two. But things are not looking good in the commercial bee industry right now. We'll see how that goes. They hadn't really nailed down the cause yet, from what I've heard. So we'll see. I would just about bet that it's going to be something to do with mites and resistance to amateurs and something along the lines of that. Once it boils down to finding out what the cause is, but it's just my guess. We'll see. I'll show you a few of these hives and kind of what our numbers are looking like right now. Our bees are a little bit different than what you see with a lot of people's Italians. You'll see pretty high numbers right now. It takes a lot of feed with Italians. We don't manage our hives like that. We don't do pollination. Also, we got primarily Russian stock, which without a lot of help, they naturally reduce their numbers to very low frame counts in the wintertime. It's pretty impressive, or really eye-opening if you haven't seen Russian bees through the wintertime. But I'll show you what they look like. A lot of hives will have 2 frames of bees at this point before they start brooding up, and but it's pretty impressive also how quickly they explode out to 10 frames of hives. I mean 10 frames of bees in a hive. So it's a little different managing Russian bees. But I'll give you a look at that, and let's see what we're looking at this time of year. These are what we use for comb honey. You probably seen it in a couple of our videos last year. These are the hog half comb boxes, and they've worked out really good for us. They come with pre-waxed foundation in there. You just set them in there just like that. Got 40 cassettes in it, and once they get filled up, you just take them out and they break apart in 40 separate cassettes, and they got tops that popped on them and seals them up. You just sell them like that. Not much to it. A little bit expensive, but they do work really well. This is a refill that you'll use for one that we used last year. You just after you pop them out of the box, you just refill the box. We've done good with those. We like those. Also use just some cut comb honey too. We use it and sell it as chunk honey, bottled up in quart jars. We cut a chunk, put it in the jar, and fill the jar up with honey, and we sell those also. We've done those actually sell the best. Those have done really well for us. Those are in pretty high demand. I can tell you that right now. Not a lot of people sells that type of honey anymore. Had a lot of people start to ask for it, and so we started producing it, and it sells very quickly. Even at we sell it for $36 for a quart jar, which is a fair price considering the comb honey that's in it and what goes into making that. But it is a good profit also. But at that price, we sell all that we can produce. That may be if you're selling honey, that may be a good product to look into to increase your revenue a little bit. But they're going to be putting those frames together. It's one of our jobs to work on over the next month or so. We got a lot of those frames right there. We use a split top bar. It's got a split down the middle. You see that each one of them's got a split. I suggest if you're going to buy frames for comb honey, buy the top bar, the bottom bar, and even the end bars, all from the same manufacturer, because they do not all fit together the same way. So get them from the same manufacturer all at one time. And when you put these together, you buy a foundation called Thin Surplus Foundation. It's made strictly for comb honey, for cut comb honey. And you'll have to get your frame together. You pry these top bars apart. You can see they're pretty easy to pry apart. A lot of people, it's actually easier than that. This tape's got them held together, but a lot of people build a little jig to get that top bar separated, opened up. Slide that piece of foundation in through that crack from the top, and then I pin the top of the foundation over just a little bit, about 1/4 of an inch, bend it over, and staple it down just to hold it in place. And I put usually put 9, sometimes I put 10 frames to a box of those. I think I'm going to continue going with 10 because I didn't really see much difference in the comb from 9 frames to 10 frames really in that cut comb honey. Not really any difference in the thickness of that comb and the amount of honey. We tried, I think I even tried some 8 frames like that last year, and not really much difference at all. In the end product, it was pretty much the same, but we ended up with more frames with the 10 frame boxes, obviously. So I think we're going to stick with that. Yeah, that's how we do our comb honey. So there's some good ideas for your business, your honey business, if you're looking to get into comb honey. For those of you that may be interested in comb honey, maybe get started in comb honey and looking at what possibilities are out there to purchase, I'll show you just how easy it is to. This is one of the cassette boxes, the hog half comb boxes that we used last year. Pulled the cassettes out and sold those. As you can see, they're just taped together. I'll show you what else you use to put them together, but when you pull them out, it's just taped together. You pull the tape off and they separate into 40 separate boxes, and they also come with lids. These lids completely seal the box up. So you stick that on there. You either put a little piece of tape on the sides to hold it down. We use a label as a dual purpose. It holds the lid, keeps the lid from being able to come off. It's also our label for retail, and that's how we package them. I'll show you how easy it is to put these together. All that holds these in is you got four separate boards and five of these springs. I would suggest one thing that I've seen, some of these boards are pretty thin. You can see we pulled the boxes apart last summer, and they've set over the winter and warped just a little bit. It's no big deal. They're plenty flimsy enough to still put together, but I would suggest going ahead and adding your refills into the box and putting it together to keep that from happening. But all you do is you set one board in place, one outside board with the one with the leg, set it in place, stick your cassettes in, put this board on the opposite side, and you've got these two shorter end boards, goes in place, and then you got 3 springs goes on the long board and 2 springs on the short end. You just drive those in. They're very easy to push in. And all this does is hold it in place for you to transport these boxes and get them set on the hive. Got some propolis in there. It's a little bit aggravating. That propolis. That's all there is to it. That box is held in there firm and ready to stick on a hive. I'm gonna try to show you some of these bees without getting ate up. It's a pretty cool day out here today. Don't have any smoke. I'm just taking a little peek in some of these, but there's a hive. They're clustered fairly tight, but this is a fairly strong hive. That's probably, I would say, 8 frames of bees in that one. That's a good hive. It's got a double screen board because it had a split. One of the fall splits we made sitting right there on top of it. That fall split didn't make it. But here's another. This is a fall split that we made. Let's see what these look like. Yeah, there's a good 4, maybe 5 frames of bees in that fall split. If you remember, we made those in we made those in August with 2 frames of brood and a queen cell, and those look good. That's pretty typical for those fall splits right now. That new queen in there from the fall, though, my goodness, you talking about bees exploding. As soon as you get some syrup coming onto those new fall splits, they will bust the walls out of that box within a couple of weeks. They starting to brood now. That brood starts to emerge out, and they'll have more brood than the other hives. That queen, she's just really itching to lay, and they'll be brooded up good. That 5 frames of bees will probably have, I guarantee she's got 3 frames of brood in there, and a lot of that's probably already emerging out and they're starting to expand. You put feed on them, she's going to start laying like crazy. This is February 14th. By the beginning of March, those, if you don't have a second box on top of those, they're ready to swarm, and they will. Those fall splits will make a lot of frames of bees this spring. They are massive honey producers. Those are the best splits to make for honey for the next year. Those do really good. So it's very valuable to have a lot of those made up in the fall. Yeah, bees are looking pretty good. Most of these hives have got 2 to 3 frames, 4 frames of bees. The lower ends probably got 2 frames of bees in a lot of them, and most of them is 3. A few's 3. Most of them is probably 4 to 5. 4 to 5, maybe 6 frames of brood. Probably about a 4.5, 5 frame average, I would say, right now. So looking pretty good. We have hardly any winter losses so far, and we're getting feed on them now, so I don't suspect to have any more losses. So we've done really good over the winter. Things are looking good. About to make a lot of splits and probably make more bees than I can handle. So I'll be getting to work, and we'll see. Just walking around, checking numbers. Winter survival. The sun started to heat these hives up enough there. A few of them started to fly out. A lot of these here is splits from the fall. Even some of these right here that's not above double screen boards. Some of these are either requeened or made a split in the fall. This one's made in July. It's That's a good number of bees in it. I can tell without even pulling that cover off. That's a smaller hive there. Let's see if we can look and see. Yeah, that's probably a 2.5 framer there. Not very untypical of Russians. Just prior to build up in the spring. Can't tell how many is in that. They're live though. That's a box pretty full of bees. They're probably about to eat me up. They ain't happy with me opening them up on this cold, rainy weather we've had. This side hadn't got much sun, but I can tell there's bees in all of those. Looks like everything's got bees, except maybe this hive, about this pellets started to fall in. Yeah, it's got bees too. I think we got 1, 4, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 hives right here. And they've all got bees. Hadn't had any losses here. So that's good. I've had very few losses that I've found. I hadn't been to a lot of yards, but I've been to enough to get a good idea. This is our, we call this our home yard here. It's just where we started out at, and this is where we raised a lot of drones at to raise queens. We have a queen, set our queen mating yard up over in the middle of this huge field. Got hives set up, 3 pallets to a spot. Most of the spots around, kind of around the perimeter, is a quarter to a half a mile from the center of this field where we set most of these hives up. Got a lot more than 3 pallets on the other end over there, but they're kind of set up all the way around the perimeter. And also, we've got a few yards, say 1, 2, 3, we've got 4 more yards with a good many 40 to 60 hives per yard. They don't quite all have that much right now, but that's our target anyway. We're gonna have to make some splits on them to fill them on out this year, but they're all sitting within say around a mile apart each, away from the center of this field. So we use those to raise plenty of drones to mate our queens here on this yard. So it's kind of we store equipment here and all. This is kind of where we operate out of, so we call this our home yard. But as far as numbers, we're looking really good, really good. This is a beetle's comb yard. Those boxes sitting up right there have been sitting since last fall. A couple I missed picking up, but hives here, numbers this is probably the lowest populated yard we've got. We got these pellets here, and then if you can see down the hill down there is a few more pallets sitting right down there. I pulled a lot of hives off of this yard. I picked up some new yards last summer, last fall, and what I like to do is just get some bees moved onto the yard rather than trying to move a full yard at a time. If I'm gonna put 40 hives on the yard, I'll try to take 15 or 20 hives to a new location. And even if I pull numbers off of an existing yard like I did here, and that's what happened here, I take 15 hives or so to that new yard, at least get some bees on it. And then in the springtime, it's pretty easy to go ahead and take splits off of those hives that's moved there and fill the rest of the yard up. That cuts down on moving hives as much. I can make the splits right there in the yard and keep them in place without having to haul them around. But this yard is also looks really good. I hadn't seen a single dead out yet. Every hive that is here has got bees starting to warm up and fly. The most populated hives, they'll warm up the fastest because of just the number of bees in the hive. They'll fly the earliest. The lower population hives takes them a little bit longer to get started up, but you crack the lid and see that there's bees in them. Find one that's not flying. Check this one out here. This one's not flying. Let's see if it's got. This may be a dead out here. I have found one dead out anyway. Nope, it's got bees. I'm having a hard time finding a dead out, which is fantastic. All those got bees. Everything, every hive has bees. I have not found a dead out so far, other than a couple of those fall splits that didn't make it. But that's very typical for that. That's completely expected. Some of those just don't make it. They new queens, maybe the queen didn't get mated good, or all kind of issues that starting up a new split. Sometimes they just don't make it. But I'm very excited about the numbers that we've got overwintered. There's the rest of those hives down there. We'll start getting some feed on them, and these boxes will start to explode with bees, and we'll start making some splits and getting our numbers up. And I feel really good about this year. I'm really actually surprised at the numbers so far, not counting the fall splits. What couple of them that I found empty, we are going to be really close to 100% overwinter survival. There's a couple of yards that I hadn't checked, but I've checked enough to see that we are in very, very good shape. I hope you all have had the same experience. If you got questions about, you know, what things to do at this point, I've got the series we made last year on our process of going through the season. Go watch that series. Gosh, I can't even remember what it's titled now, but if you go to the playlist, it's under the playlist. I think it's a complete year of hive management or something like that's what we called it. But go watch that, and like, of course, if you got any questions, just reply to this or any other video. Ask your questions, and I try to answer all questions that are asked on these videos. And yeah, it's time to start getting to work and ramping things up. Try to let you see some of these bees coming in. Typically right now they're bringing in a lot of red and purple pollen from henbit and dead nettle. Bringing in some red maple. So we've had a lot of rain the last couple of days, probably knocked a lot of that down. Today I'm seeing a lot of yellow pollen, I assume from dandelions. Bringing in a lot of pollen though. Most all these bees has got yellow pollen on their legs.